Welcome to this exercise on bad flow. Flow is that state you're in when you're performing at your peak. Your talents are your most potent flow activators. Having said that, there is such a thing as bad flow. Bad flow is when you lash out. It's an immediate and visceral reaction to something, and the sequence goes something like this. Something happens, you can't help but react and lash out, and as a result, you make things worse. It spirals downwards. You can probably think of examples where you've had the classic fight, flight, or freeze response, and that's bad flow. Ironically, bad flow is also triggered by our talents. Let me go through a couple of case studies. The first is a case study I'll call Walt, and you can see Walt's talents here. Walt's bad flow experience was when he had to write documentation. Walt's a database administrator. And I asked him to send me an email of what the experience was like when he had to write documentation. Here is Walt's description of bad flow in his own words. When I'm trying to document a procedure that would benefit my coworkers and me, I have a fear of failure or not doing a good job because of my lack of writing skills or not getting it right. I feel dread, despair. It almost feels painful. I have a fear of the writing process. I start to work on it, but I'm easily distracted by other tasks or items that I feel are more fun. Even when writing you this email, I was relieved that a call came in and I had to stop this to answer that. I feel shame that I'm not doing this work and that I'm easily distracted. I try to pull myself to do it or force myself to focus. And so there you have Walt's description of writing documentation, and you can see deliberative to a T. So what was happening here is Walt's view of risk was the actual task itself. So deliberative was short-circuiting his ability to do the task. Now notice his other talents. And when he looked at these talents, he was reminded of how he used to use them when he wrote software, when he coded. He talked about how users of his software said that he was a mind reader because he could create features that they didn't even know they needed, but they ended up loving them. This was the breakthrough for Walt, because I reminded him that he should approach writing documentation like he used to write code. So basically, we talked about how to break out of bad flow, he should change the sequence of how he'd do the tasks. Here's how he used to write software. He'd talk to users, watch how they use the product, think of worst case and best case use cases. Through that process, ideas would start to emerge, and then he would just capture those ideas in code, and boom, you had a new feature. So documentation can be written in the exact same sequence. Don't start with the writing, end with the writing. And in that way, deliberative is used as you have the discussions, you've thought through all the different scenarios, and then the documentation just kind of emerges at the end of it. The second use case, I will call him Greg, and I'm going to have you hear Greg describe bad flow literally from his own words. And as you listen to him describe his experience of bad flow, see if you can notice what's happening from a talent perspective as you look at his talent insight document.
As you were describing, as you were talking at the first part, I was trying to think, okay, it's funny, before you got to the bad flow experience, I was thinking, where's the time where I really felt like I was hitting a wall and needed to get a way around it? And it was very similar actually to this, is that I had to write something out. I had to write a product announcement, and I hate doing it because I feel like I'm going to say it wrong, or I'm going to not properly thank the people involved, or I'm going and it immediately just has a bad reaction, and I'll do anything else but do that. And it's terrible because I'm technically I lead a product, right? So it's bad. And so I got a thought about like, well, you know what? I should do a video on it. I should tell it like a story. And then I had a lot of fun. Like I stayed up through the night working on this video because of course there was a deadline. It was needed to be done the next day. But I had a lot of fun doing it. But I changed it from a like communication is high on my list. I didn't do it consciously. This sort of, but like I changed the task. I was like, well, what can I do that'll make it that I can be excited about, that I think I could do a good job on, versus this thing that I was having to churn out and whatever. So it's interesting. That was really interesting. It certainly for me, that first one, it maps exactly.
So let's talk about switching out of bad flow. I'll go through the process. So the first thing that you want to do is think of some past examples where you have had the bad flow experience, where you have lashed out. I find that it's useful to start with talent 1. A surprisingly large number of bad flow experiences seem to stem from people's first talent. And then review the I don't like descriptions of your talent insight table to see if you can isolate what was being triggered as a result of that talent, which ended up creating the bad flow experience. See if you can name that bad flow experience and the associated talent. Over time, when you can isolate which talent is being triggered, you'll start to have ideas of which talent you can switch to as you look at your talent insight document. So start with this table, which shows the I don't like component of each of your talents. Write out some examples where you've had bad flow experiences, and then go to your talent insight document and see if you can come up with ideas of which talent to switch to. The more you can switch from talent A, which is triggering bad flow, into talent B, which helps you kind of transform that into flow, the more you'll start to avoid these bad flow experiences over time. Thank you.